Alright, so people have been wanting me to do a specific video to explain who I truly am and what I went through on a daily basis in the past, okay? People don't believe me when I state I am autistic, okay? I am 100% autistic. I have mental disorders. I have plenty of things, okay? I'm not going to go down all the lists. You guys don't need to know that much information. That's pretty personal. And I just wanted to state, yes, I am autistic, and I am not as bad as I used to in the past. I have brought this up numerous times. And if you want to hear all these different stories and stuff, just look back at my past videos, okay? So, in this video, I'm going to be explaining how Grace came to be and how she was created. And I went through a lot of details with, like, I don't know how to explain it thoroughly enough to really explain this, because this word came to mind through somebody else not bringing their name up. They wanted me to keep their name out of it. By all means, I will. Okay? So, I might butcher this, but Grace, I consider her as my own child because I've been with her for the longest time. She used to be just a version of me that's been on the opposite side of my brain, and when I physically needed her, she would flip sides with me when I got really upset, and I blew up to a point where I was endangered to other people, and I have been in a scenario where the school used to threaten to call the cops for a disability school. Guys, keep that in mind. I went through a scenario where my temper was so out of control, not even a school that was meant for people who had disabilities could handle me. So, I ended up creating a version of myself as a separate being to help me with my coping strategies because I couldn't control her anymore. So, it got so out of control that I ended up having to go to the hospital in a psychiatric ward for the intellectuals or whatever it's called. It's for the adolescents kind of thing, you know? Intellectuals, I would say for myself, I am technically to an extent. I don't reject the intellectuals. Everybody's an intellectual in their own way, to be honest with you. If we weren't intellectuals, we're not normal. Because an intellectual, for me, is more of a very insane version of yourself, instead of it being an actual disorder that creates you to be that way. Other people think of an intellectual as really dumb, really stupid, they don't know what they're doing. They call them idiots. For myself, an intellectual is just being yourself and being normal, you know? So if you guys end up hating me because I said the word intellectual, just put that to the side, okay? Just put it to the side. For myself and my family, we all consider it as a normal being, you know? So, I ended up considering myself really odd normal because I was going in and out of the hospital numerous of times, okay? Just plain old simple. Been out of the, you know, I've been out of the insane asylum. I call it an insane asylum because there's some really, how do I pronounce it? People who really needed help, you know, really need help. I went to a place called Ellis Care, and like back to like almost 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I'm way far away from that place now. I'm glad I'm away from that. I don't like to look at it because of my past problems. And once I realized after a while that place wasn't helping too much, so my last visit to the hospital wasn't in Ellis Care anymore. It ended up causing me to go to a place called, it was called Utica, even though Utica is like almost 2 hours away from me. It was my first time in an actual ambulance because they didn't have room in Ellis Care anymore. When I went there, I was in a waiting area for maybe a good day to a day and a half, and they just didn't have room for me. And I'm kind of glad I didn't have to go into that place because they weren't helping. They were just throwing me in there, seeing what I had problems with, and they kicked me out. So once it came to be, when I went to Utica, this is the place that really got me understanding, learning to cope with myself, and this was the place that created Grace to separate from me and became her own spiritual being, because we were able to split and make a coping strategy that when I felt really upset, that's when she would kick in. She would hop into my head and she would control me and do what is needed to cope with myself. So I really do appreciate that many people understand that I physically need this, and it's not something really awkward or random, you know? I physically can see her. You guys can't. She's, to me right now, for me thinking that you guys would see me as a crazy person, a 22-year-old person, and I have an imaginary friend. No, it is not an imaginary friend, guys. I can argue with this all freaking day, you know? I have about 3 friends, maybe 4 sometimes, that would think, yes, this is not an imaginary friend. This is a coping strategy meant for me, and I physically need it. If I do not have myself separated, I would be the way I used to, and I wouldn't be making a YouTube channel. To be honest, I might be back in Utica trying to fix my problems, and I probably would have never met my friends. To be honest with you, I feel that this is meant for me, you know? So, let me go back to my story, and then I'm going to explain how this thing is what it is, okay? So, about, I'm going to say 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I went to Utica, and honestly, Utica is amazing. As annoying as it is and how they work with you is actually really cruel, but in a good way. So, Utica, I don't exactly know what the hospital's called, but Utica is actually very helpful because if you were to do something negative, that's one extra penalty for a day for you to stay in that hospital. And so pretty much until you can listen and you can understand what you're going through and you fix your problem, that's your only way out. That's your only ticket out. It's like jail. You do your time, or you can do if you can do the crime, you can do the time. It's similar to Utica. Utica, in order for you to get your ticket out of there, is for you to pay attention, for you to do your stuff, and for you to do what you need to do. So once you're settled, they can sense if there's something wrong with you. You could act as normal as you can possibly be, and they'll sense that there's something wrong with you. You're staying longer because you're faking your way out, you know? So, for myself, for when I was in Ellis, that lasted for 2 weeks. For me in Utica, lasted me almost a month and a half for me to get out. That's how bad my anger was. That's how bad my emotions were. And I physically feel like I was in there for a year. Like, I was so bad. And I also felt so bad because one, I missed Christmas, and two, I missed New Year's because I was in the hospital. I didn't have a holiday with my family. Oops. But I would rather have myself get healthy rather than dealing with a freaking holiday, you know? So, after a while, I started to realize that I need to find a coping strategy, and knowing I was in there for so long, I was just drawing up a storm over and over and over again, trying to just keep myself occupied, you know? And finds out, somehow I created grace. And that's where I was kicking in to understand that I don't know where Grace came from. Grace came out on her own, and I think it's because she understood that I've been going in and out of the hospital too much, and I needed to find a way to do this. And it was just getting to that point where I think my mindset was understanding that I needed help. And that's where Grace popped out of my brain and became its own being to help me with the coping strategy that I didn't understand until like 3 years ago when I realized, hey, guess what? I'm not going insane anymore. This is actually helping, you know? Because once Grace came out of my head, I've been just normal. I've been plain old just myself right now, you know? And I appreciate Grace, you know? So, let's talk about something because we've been talking for 12 minutes exactly. So let's talk about what exactly what is grace, and I'm going to explain that grace isn't fully what this is because of one side effect, because this is one thing that this specific thing is technically grace, but with one extra step onto it, if you know what I'm saying, okay? And I'll explain that after I'm done. So this is what grace is, okay? I'm going to butcher this probably, but it's called a Tulpa. I don't know if this is exactly what it's called. And it's a concept in mythicalism and a paranormal of a being or object that is created through spiritual or mental powers. And I'm not even going to read the rest of it because I'm not going to butcher everything. And this was adapted in the 20th century. And I'm not even going to pronounce this or these. So what is this? Personally, if you guys want to read this real quick, pause it because I'm not reading all this, but I am going to cut it down a little bit. Right here. They are a separate being with their own something. There's some words I've never seen before, so bear with me. I think it's agency, emotions and preferences, thoughts and character. They can be likened to a separate mental consciousness existing alongside. So I'm taking it this word. Hold on. Let's look this up. Just for shits and giggles. Just for the fun of it. Whoops. I was just trying to look up some stuff. It's nothing biggie. And I'm going to push enter because I'm standing up. Is a person who explores activities by which altered states in consciousness. So this is like your mental being, I guess. I don't know. I'm not even going to try pronouncing it. If you guys know how to pronounce it, can you cut it up and put like the little line thing that kind of cuts it up so I know how to pronounce it? Also, can they be dangerous? It all depends on how you create them. To be honest, guys, to be blatantly honest, grace is dangerous technically she might be spiritual, but she is demonic, to be honest. And not every demonic person has to be dangerous, you know? She might be dangerous, but she's dangerous when she's mad, you know? It's like saying the saying that everybody says, you won't like me when I'm mad. Technically, it depends on the being, you know? Like, everybody has their own negative side, you know? Everybody can be mad, everybody can be dangerous, everybody can be blah blah blah, however, whatever. Depends on how you do it, you know? It all reflects on your being, you know? And that's how I controlled myself, and I created a different being by being myself, you know? That's the whole meaning of grace. So this is how you would create the Tulpa, or whatever it's called, in the fast version. So you would plan it out. It'll take some time. It took me about 6 years to understand it, but it was a fast version because I ended up having some time to myself, and it took me a month to create it. But to be honest, guys, grace didn't take just a month. It took at least maybe a minimum of 6 times in the hospital to 7 times in the hospital. But honestly, I wasn't in there for 6 times, but I was in and out of the hospital 6 times. But I was in the actual place about 3 to 4 times. If that makes sense. Because they rejected me a few times. Consider its beliefs and personality as step 2. Practice speaking and interacting with it, which I do every day of my life. And she ended up calling me her parent, you know? She's very young, and she helps. So step 4 is to practice keeping it in the background. So, really quick, to understand what they mean by background, if you guys don't know what a background is pretty much trying to ignore it for a short period of time until you really need it, if it's out of control, or you can keep it in the, if it's a mental Tulpa, keep it in the back side of your head and not have it take control of you when you physically don't need it to, you know? Because it has its own personality, so it'll take control of you. If that makes any sense. Also, check if it's really there. So, this one's a biggie, and I'm going to explain it right here and right now. If you guys remember some people who don't believe in the afterlife, and yes, I'm taking a saying from a movie called Coco, and it's called, if you forget the person you love, and if everyone in that family, or even their friends, if everyone who remembers them and then forgets them after they're dead, their spirit will fade away. It's kind of the same way with a Tulpa or an imaginary friend. After a while of not believing in that form, they'll just vanish. They'll go. They won't be there anymore. You're going to have to recreate it and everything. You know? I think we're done with this right here. Nope. So we're going to skip this one for a second. So you can physically force it, which is the thing I kind of did by accident. Many people consider forcing a, I don't know what that is, activity projecting on itself into a wonderland to develop or interact with a Tulpa. Forcing can be any active interaction with a Tulpa, with or without using a wonderland. So, really quick, for myself, I used the demon realm as its wonderland because it's the closest thing to Earth, and also how dangerous she can be because of how bad my temper used to be. And she became one. Sadly, she communicates with me and my friends by using my body to interact, to talk to my friends. And she ended up explaining that her temper is actually one of the strongest beings in the demonic realm, which is actually kind of funny, but besides the point. Can you have multiple? Yes. Sadly, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have 3. One of them is technically Grace, of course. I also have a very small version of myself that's one of my favorites, and it's one of the ones that helps me sleep, which is nice. And I also have another one that I'm not going to explain because it's going to get really creepy. It's going to get really creepy really fast, and I'm not going to explain it. So that one follows Greg around, which is... I'm sorry if my voice is cracking a little bit. Just getting really dry in here. Not warm, but just dry. I've also been talking continuously. But yeah, that one follows Greg, and only follows Greg. So... supernatural, I don't know exactly what this means, but I was reading this and I didn't understand it that much. I'll call her back. There's this one right here. Alright, yeah, I'm just gonna do this. Sorry if that interrupted you guys. So, this one right here is probably the best one to explain what it is. So, it's a paranormal of a being or object, which is the thing that I was explaining on top, which is this. So, for myself, Grace is supernatural and demonic at the same time. Pretty summary, right? Also, for the people who is still watching this right now, I'm going to explain one thing and one thing only. And I heard this from a person on Facebook who is also autistic. And when you see an autistic person, they could be very, very normal on the outside, but deep inside their mind, they could have some problems with themselves and you don't know it. For myself, I have a friend who doesn't know how to speak correctly and struggles, you know? With myself, I used to have a bad temper. I used to be very angry, very fast, and it was like that for 3 years after I ended up being part of the school that I spoke about, which I'm not going to say the name, but if you guys want to know the name, it starts with a B, and I made a video on it in the past. 3, I also struggle with learning. That's why you guys see some problems with myself when I'm trying to stream. I don't know how to work with the settings and stuff on OBS once in a while, so I'm struggling with that. And 4, to be honest, there's some things in the behind the scenes of YouTube that I struggle with, but I've had many people that have actually spoke to me on Discord and Facebook and also in reality in public have said, you do not look autistic whatsoever. I am, and I am proud to be one. As much as autism is a very, very tragic thing, it is not a disorder. Sorry, it is not a disorder. It is a it's a spectrum. It is not like I'm not. You can argue with an autistic person all day, or a parent who has an autistic person in their family. You can argue with them all day. It is not a disorder, it is a spectrum of a disorder. If you think about it, it breaks out to many different branches for, like, for example, anger. Anger disorder or mental disorder, whatever you want to call it. You can have depression, anxiety, bipolar, Asperger's, whatever you want to say. It can break out into so many different branches, and it has 4 different versions of itself, and I have 3. Which isn't basically, there's 4 different tiers, but I have 3 tiers. So I fall into that. So I am proud to be one, and I'm proud to be one of the biggest role models that I know of. There could be bigger role models than me, okay? There could be so many different role models than me. But for myself that I know of, for myself, I'm on the top tier, but there's somebody above me. But I am on the high tier of being a big role model to the people who are autistic and rely on me to be that role model for them. And that's why I like having my channel, you know? I struggle in every single day. I might have something on this channel that you guys might not enjoy because I either made a mistake like I did in the past, like yesterday, or the day before whenever I made that Mega Man Maker video talking about Zero. I had no idea that I made a mistake until after somebody corrected me in the comments. I'm taking all the hate as I possibly can, and I'm taking it very, 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 very well. I didn't flip out, I didn't get mad, and I just enjoyed taking the hate, you know? I made a mistake, I'm going to be a grown adult and take it in, you know? But guys, I need to get going. I just realized the time when I was done talking about some stuff with this. So if you guys would like a part 2, because I kind of didn't get through everything I wanted to, but I got through enough. But if you guys want a part 2, I'll talk about like how long it took me to be diagnosed with autism, and how fast and how annoying it was for me to actually be diagnosed with it. Because that's a crazy story, trust me. Very, very crazy story. And I really want to explain how difficult it was for me to gain that ability to, or not the ability, but, you know, to actually get it and be part of the disordered family, you know? I call it the disordered family because there's plenty of people in this, you know, just being diagnosed with something, you know? And it took me forever to be diagnosed with autism. After how long it took me to understand how to cope with myself, guys, let me just tell you how many years it took me. And it was, and you guys will actually want me to explain this, because this is fucking insane and probably one of the dumbest things I could ever think of. It took me almost 12 to 14 years to be diagnosed. Pretty much through elementary school, almost until high school. Okay? I probably said too many years, but I don't give a damn. But yeah, almost the beginning of elementary school, almost all the way until the end of high school, just be diagnosed. You know? It's so dumb. Like, my parents knew I was, so they but I'm just saying, just to have that paperwork signed and scratched and sent to us, it took me a long time to get that. And I really want to explain that to you guys on how that worked and how that went for me. Because it was stupid. But thank you guys so much for watching. And if you guys thought this was a cool way for me to explain a specific thing that somebody struggles through, I really want to start doing this again, because back in the day, in the beginning of my channel, I used to explain what autism is, how you can handle it, and how to help somebody with it. And many people wanted me to do that again, and I completely just ignored it because I just thought nobody really was interested in it. But seeing that I'm trying to make videos again, I feel maybe you guys will let me talk about it and talk about my problems with disorders. 'Cause I have plenty, trust me. But I already gone through two, and I have plenty more to go if you guys want to hear it. All right. I'll catch you guys hopefully soon, and I do apologize if I'm not going live that much. I just want to kind of break it down just a little bit because I might be moving to working for the workforce, so I don't want to have my mindset on that. But I do want to get back in the live stream again. So I'll catch you guys hopefully soon. And Ragers, out guys.